Welcome back to the Life in the Military Spouses Edition podcast with your hosts, Ashley and Stephanie. We are talking family dynamics today. And I think this is an interesting one that nobody really thinks about. Ash, give me your thoughts on that. Like, when you hear the word family dynamic, what does it make you think of?
Like with my experience or what people might think of?
What you think of?
Okay, well, um, with my experience, family dynamic, I mean, it's just kind of how our family works. It's how our daily life, it's our dynamic, it's how we just do life together.
Okay. So if somebody were to think, I don't know, like I always think the civilian world runs one way and we all run a little bit different.
Agreed.
And then transitioning from, I know for us, it was interesting to go and transition from military family dynamic to veteran family dynamic because it falls just a little bit differently. So will you explain? I think you can explain how does your dynamic work at your house, and I'll explain mine, and then we can kind of compare it to the civilian world.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, so again, we're almost 20 years in to the military. Eric is retiring in a year, and so our dynamic shifts. It's like different seasons in a way, just because of his workload and what he's doing. Um, we kind of we kind of go with his flow in a sense. And so um it really does depend on where we're at on where he's at, if that makes any sense. So if he's home, he's not deployed, he kind of falls into place in a way because I've been doing all the things with him being gone. And he brings well, how should I say this? He falls into place. It takes a little while, for everything to get back in the swing of things, and for him to kind of intertwine and almost like become a part of us. But I mean, it does happen with a lot of trials and fights and tears and all that kind of fun stuff, I guess I should say, for the lack of better words. But it does happen. And when he is home and things are good and he's kind of intertwined and intermingled and reintegrated back into our life in a way, it just kind of looks like a normal family, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that definition of normal all depends on who we're talking about, but we do school, we do kid pickup, we do sports, we do church, we do, activities on the weekend or the lack thereof of activities, and just relax, because we hardly ever get that time too. So now to shift into a more dynamic role of him being gone or training all the time, that's when things look differently. That's when
Right.
things don't look normal per se, to the normal civilian family. Um,
Right.
I take on the man role. I take on the dad role a lot of times. You know, I have to do everything at home. That Yeah, this is my responsibility. That my kids, my home, their well-being, the well-being of the house, everything. I've learned how to do plumbing and
Yeah.
tile, and I've learned how to all the house projects because Eric's not here to do them, or wasn't here, I should say. And so, you know, you kind of get into this role as a wife, or I got into this role as a wife of I'm in charge. This
Mhm.
is mine. This is I'm raising these kids. I'm a single parent. This is my house. I'm taking care of it. I'm paying all the bills. Eric and I talk and we just catch each other up, but really I'm doing it. I'm doing it all on the home front. So that's kind of what our dynamic looks like in different parts and different seasons of our life.
And I think you made a really good point, because the concept of seasons is, to the civilian world, there is no season. It's a time. It is, this is how it is. And to us, we kind of fall into seasons where some points in time we're integrated and it looks like a normal functioning household. We're good. We've got it. It's all great. And then there's times where you're like, okay, something seems different. Like, is this a single parent household or like this kind of thing? And it falls just differently. And like you said, I think I have learned more, I don't want to call them manly things, but I think they're like the ones that most of the time society would dictate the guy would know. I've learned how to do different household projects and how to fix a plumbing issue and how to, edge and cut the lawn and do all the things. And, you're the one that's dealing with the light bulbs being out here and power outages and calling this place and setting up this appointment and bills and all of this. And I remember that there's times and seasons that are great. Like it seems uncomfortable at first because you have to go from 2 to 1, and then you kind of fall into the rhythm and the routine, and it's great and it's fine. And you take on your responsibilities and duties. And like you said, you catch them up and you fill them in and you do all of that. And then they come home and there's that, now we went from going from 2 to 1 to 1 to 2. And how do I give you back the responsibilities? And that whole, we will have a whole episode on that reintegration and difference. But there is that transition period. There is that time frame where it's not comfortable. But it's part of it. It's part of the process. And I know for our house, the seasons are just, I don't know, they look different because Chris isn't training where he'll go away for a week and a half or 2 weeks, or he won't be deployed. But yet at the same time, my husband can work construction. So he leaves the house at 5:30 in the morning and doesn't get home until 7 some nights, and works a Saturday. So now you're like, okay, I'm running solo for 90% of the day. Not that he's not here, but it's taught me, I think having this family dynamic that we have has taught me a lot of independence.
Yes.
It's had a lot of independence on my part, and I have to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. Like, I think that's one of the things that we as military wives is that we can stand on our own 2 feet. Like, we stand there and we figure it out and we make it happen and we make it work. And then, but at the same time, it's worked that communication skill to like its next level. Like it's got to be next level communication so that the other one doesn't feel like they're just not important or not there, or they're still involved in, like, I know we've been in classes before. We did a thing at the church before one of our we renewed our vows, and there's like this 100-question quiz that they had us take, and they told us after we took our test, they were like, we've never seen somebody score so high on this test. Like, even marriages that have been together for like 50 plus years couldn't even score this high. How do you guys do it? And I was like, we make it work. Like, this, we are a military family. Like, this is how it works, is that we have to communicate. And that's, I think, part of the dynamic is that there will be the ebbs and flows and there will be goods and bads and that kind of thing. But, for our house, it's just different. Like, we did back to school night or something, one of those supply drop-offs because of the school year. My husband, Chris, is like, well, just take them during the day. And I was like, but don't you want to meet the teachers? He's like, I'll figure out another time. And we do that. And, there was one time we did a parent teacher conference where I was in person and he was on Skype because he just couldn't make it. Like, he just couldn't make that time frame. And we've done it. We make it work. And thankfully, when it comes to the kids, a lot of the school districts have been very accommodating and just understanding.
Well, and I like what you said that sometimes he just couldn't make it, and like that's been our life, in the military and what you've experienced. I know you're out now, you're still kind of dealing with the same thing. I think it's prepared you for that, but it's like, yeah, these guys, they don't have a choice.
Right.
They don't have a choice. They are, kind of bound and contracted, right? And if they don't show up, then they get in trouble. And which it does, getting in trouble doesn't look like the outside, like you can't get fired, okay? But it affects, position, and it affects promotion, and it affects, those things where, you want to keep providing for your family, keep moving up. And in the military, that's kind of the only way that you can,
Yep.
Is to promote. And so if you're kind of like not doing, if these guys aren't doing what they're supposed to, then that affects them, which affects your family. So they really can't make things. And us as wives, I've had to deal with it. I've had to learn. Like, I signed up for this. Eric was already in the military. I was like, okay, like, I'm joining you in this. I understand, like, we are going wherever you are going, because I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. Like, I have no say. And I know that rubs, a lot of wives the wrong way. It hurts even those of us that are in, there are times where, like, man, like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I wish, I wish we could just, like, have a day off when we wanted to, or I wish we could, go on vacation any other time than block leave, or I wish, he could just come to the kids' practices. But
Yeah.
but for the most part, he couldn't. It was
Right.
just me. And so, these guys, they can't leave. And so it is left up to us to figure those things out. Whether it is, like you said, Chris going on Skype and like, hey, meet and greet. Here's my husband. He can't
Yeah.
make it. Or it's just like, oh, it's just me today. Sorry, my husband can't make it. It is what it is. Sometimes nobody will even see my husband. They probably think I'm making him up sometimes, but but it's just that life, it's that life.
And,
We don't have that choice on whether he can be here or not. It's not that easy to just be like, hey, can you come? Can you take off for just a few hours? Like, you can't do it.
yeah. I mean, it's prepared me for life outside of the world, but or outside of the military has, being in has prepared me for being out. But I mean, my own husband missed two children being born. And I sat in I remember Jackson's was probably the hardest one. And everybody kind of laughs at it and is like still at the same time, like they're like awkwardly laughing at it and they're like shocked. And I have had many a person tell me, how did you do it? And I was like, there was no other choice. Like, I had no choice. But I mean, I was sat in a foreign country in a foreign hospital where myself and the nurses couldn't even speak to each other because there was a language barrier. And I can't even call my husband to tell him that I'm about to deliver our child. I needed a power of attorney to name my own kid because he wasn't there. Like,
Oh gosh.
this is crazy insanity that we had to deal with of like family dynamic. Is it's not just, hey babe, it's go time. It's, hey, it's go time. I'll text you afterwards. Like, that is sometimes our dynamic. And it sounds so crazy, like, to so many people who have like heard my birth stories or have talked to us about our kids. Like, we have 4 kids and Chris missed 3 out of 4 births. we laugh at it, and everybody else like thinks we are sadistic for like, how are you laughing at this? And I'm like, because it was our, like, this is just our life. It's our story. It's who we are. But I mean, I could sit there and I could easily get mad about this, and we could be mad about the fact that like they're gone all the time and that this isn't fair. Or we can just make the best of it and just go, when you're here and you're
Yeah.
present, love it. Or we step up when it's not the most convenient and we make it work. But I think the family dynamic, where I have seen the family dynamic be different, is with the kids, is between him and the kids, because of like, he's just like, I feel like I missed out. I missed out on the bigs, or I'm missing out on this one. And I noticed that that difference of a family dynamic is shown more between him and the kids than it is between him and me. And maybe that's just like our house. But you know, Chris and I joined, and I say Chris and I joined. He joined. We were engaged at the time. So I walked into not just my marriage, but the military from the civilian world with him. And I knew what we were signing up for. I knew that there was going to be times away, and that there was going to be distance. But you know it, you say yes to it. But sometimes you're like, man, I didn't realize this was what it was. But I think that his biggest struggle and the biggest strain has been in the kids, like his relationship with the kids. Is just different. It's different with each one of them because they were all during different stages. And so, and he looks at it and he notices that my relationship with Abby is different than my relationship with Maggie, or than his is with Abby. And I'm like, but she's my bestie. Like, I don't think you get it. Like, this girl and I, we grew up together. Like, not only did we literally have to I had to raise her alone, but I was growing up while she was growing up. So because of being such a young parent at 21, I don't know if I really fully understood life fully at 21. So there's just a difference, and I think that that's where I see it. Now, do you notice a difference in the dynamic between like Eric and the kids more so than you, or just in general?
I see, I can see both. And I'll talk on the kids first, and then I'll talk on him and I. So same thing like you're saying. We've had the similar experiences of, you know, them coming back and them feeling, our guys feeling like they did or they are missing out, because they are missing out. You know, they don't have the everyday life of watching their kids grow. When Eric was deployed, he deployed, he has like 7 hard deployments under his belt, and other, like, I don't know if they call them soft or deployments, but he has other smaller ones. And you know, he was gone if I calculate it, like every year and a half or so, he was always at least gone for a chunk of time. And then in between then, he was gone, like training on this day, or a week on here, or you know, a long 2 weeks here or whatever. But so you know, he's seeing this child, and I will talk on just my oldest child more so because she is the one, like your Abby, you know, she grew up in it the most. She's dealt with it the most. Likewise, we grew up together. I was a very timid parent. I was a very timid person. And she kind of forced me, because she's very strong-willed, that girl, to shift into a person, to be who I am, to be a parent, to raise her by myself, because I was doing it by myself. I didn't have any help. But yeah, he felt like he was missing it. He's almost like looking at a lens through a strobe light. You know, every time he blinks, like she's growing and changing, and I say that like how he blinks, but it's like every time he returns home, she's different. The way she
Yep.
talks is different. The way she moves is different. You know, she's more capable in certain ways. She's starting to say be more independent, and her looks are changing, and he's missing it. um I think he did miss several birthdays. I can't remember exactly how many right now. He was here for some, but he missed most, I think, in her younger years. Um, and then all of a sudden we add another kid in, so then the time has to be split up when he doesn't even technically know his
Right.
older his older child. So he's trying to figure out who this little human that's growing already is. Then he has to learn a new one that comes along, and then he has to share his time, which I'm sure he doesn't want to know or doesn't want to share his time with.
Right.
And I'm sitting back and I'm watching this, and there's no way for me to help.
Yes.
There's no way for me to help, because if I do, I don't know about you and Chris, but if I ever did, he was very he's very prideful and
Okay.
always like, I got it, this is my kid, don't you think I know my kid, don't you think I can do this? And I had to, for me and him and our dynamic, I had to throw up my hands, be like, Lord, you got it.
Yeah.
Lord, you got it. Because if I try to interject, then we're fighting, you know, because he feels that I'm overstepping his manhood, his position as a father, his position as a leader in our household. And granted, I absolutely agree with that role. I do. I am not a feminist. I will go out and say it. I'm going to probably make people mad about that, but that's just who I am and our family. I have a husband. In our faith, like, he is the leader of our family. I am
Yeah.
his helper. I am not beneath him. I am his helper. I come alongside him.
Correct.
But still, that is his role, and I was always happy when he came back home to give it back to him. I tried,
And
you
see,
know.
that's where we've talked about this one is where we differ is I had the hardest time handing it back over. I
Right,
was like, I've got it. What do you, like, and I was Eric where I was like, this is mine. Like
right.
mine. Back up, hold on. And I am with you though. Like I have that same thought process of my husband is the leader of our home, right? And we together as that partnership
Mhm.
lead the house, right? And I have a different role than he does. And, as the stay-at-home mom, yes, I'm going to be more of the like inside the house and the housekeeper and the like nurturer, and he's going to be the provider. But I still turn to him and I have him do, like do the manlier role and I have him hold that role. But man, during those times of like, there were many a time, especially when he came back from deployment and field rotations and in the military, the main chunk of the military, where I was like, I run this. Like,
Yeah,
I run, homie. You can take a seat or back it up because I don't like, and I was just, I think I did it out of protection because it protected me and it protected the kids.
yeah.
Um, so I did it out of protection, and I, to my own fault, did it then.
Yeah. Well, and like, thinking back on it, like, going back to like him, trying to have like this relationship with these kids. And I'm sure Chris probably, I don't, well, actually, I don't want to speak for Chris because I don't know for sure, but Eric struggled with, you know, wanting to just be a dad and be fun and be loving and just do all the fun things because he never could. Um, and then he struggled, like, on the flip side, being a disciplinary, because I was the disciplinary. I was the one raising the kids. I was the one mentoring them, guiding them. And I did it the way that I knew how and that I thought best. And then, so to have him come back in, that was really hard for me. That's the part that was hard for me. Not necessarily to give him the role back, but then once he took it, then I was like, whoa. And because especially in the discipline area of raising children, you know, he was coming off of deployment or coming off of training or wherever he was. And his mindset was hard.
Yes.
It was hard. And that's a nice way of putting it,
Yes.
but so then he starts, doing what he thinks is best, thinking almost like our family are now team guys or other soldiers, and we're not. And so then, you know, my kids, my oldest one, especially, like you could see her putting up this wall, she's protecting herself. She's guarding her heart because, hey, I don't know what dad is going to do, how he's going to react, and her being so strong willed, they would butt heads all the time as well. And, granted, she had to learn and had to adjust on how to be a child, because she's had to grow up a little quicker than normal as well. And she had to learn, this is dad, this is mom. I need to respect them as my parents. And, but the way, at least back then, again, I had to just, Lord, you got it. Because what we're doing, it like what I'm doing and what I'm seeing is damaging sometimes. And I hate to say that, but it is, I feel so bad, especially for my Olivia, for my oldest, because she's like the trial kid, you don't know as a parent, for one, and then you add this lifestyle into it where they're along for the ride as well. And it's a hard lifestyle with, parents, a parent constantly coming back and forth. And each time dad comes back home, he's a little different. He's a little harder. He's a little more rough, and she's adjusting. All she wants is her dad,
Right.
So it's been, for my kids dynamic, like that's been something that I've definitely watched them do. And even my second one, Nora, not so much, but that has happened where she's like, especially now, I will say, she's starting to see dad in a different light when he gets angry, or, if he's had a rough day, because she's getting older, she's being more receptive to those things, so it's shifted a little bit because he's learned, but yeah, like the kids, like for that part of it, not between him and I, but for that part of it, yeah, it was a hard life. It was hard to watch.
Yes.
And be a parent, watching him come and go all the time and watching him try to interact with our kids.
Right. And I think that's why I put the super hard wall up. And I became the, like, this is mine. During the military, was because I was on protection mode. I am your steady and I'm your rock. I will be that rock and I will protect to no end. And if that meant, in my head, sometimes I was protecting from their own dad. I know that sounds horrible, but it's a slight thing of like, the goodbyes didn't get easier for them. It might have gotten easier for us because we could understand, like, okay, 15 months versus a week, or a year versus 2 weeks. Like, we understood that time frame and we could kind of adjust and do and figure it out. But they didn't get that. They didn't understand, especially because mine were much younger. They didn't get the concept of time. They had no idea what time was. And so, I mean, as much as I call my kid the bigs, so because of mine being a year and a half apart, I call them the bigs and the littles. And my bigs saw dad through the military eyes, and they saw him through the deployment, the leaves, the this, the that, you know, field rotations, all of that. And then my littles didn't even really get to see dad through the military at all. He was pretty much out by that point. So they don't really understand. And I see your thought though of how Olivia had to figure out the dynamic of where she fit, because when dad was gone, Abby would do that all the time. She became my partner. You know, she played, we joked around all the time that her nickname was Little Mama, because she literally became Little Mom. Like she fell into that role, and then had to learn how to relinquish that role when dad came in, because my partner was back, and she had to learn how to show a different kind of respect. And I mean, even Jackson has had to do that too, being that he's at that point, you know, being only a year and a half younger than Abby. He had to learn that same thought process. He became, you know, he took on some of the more I'm the man of the house type of a thing, and would protect and love, and he cared for us, and he did things a little differently. So the bigs have a harder time. Like you're saying, Olivia and Eric would butt heads. I mean, I will watch those three go at it. And I'm like, you guys, why are we fighting? What is the main cause of this issue right now? And he, you know, I can see Chris being softer with the littles. And I don't know, is that just because they are still only, they're 7 and 4, so we're softer with them versus the teens?
I don't think so.
Dynamic, and they're just truly, he is just truly at a wills with them. You know, and there's plenty of times where I've had to step in and be like, okay, I need y'all to separate, cool down, come back when you're done. Like, I need you to separate, because you two are going to take each other off the planet. Like, boxing in my living room is not okay. And I've learned that I've had to intercept, and I've had to use my voice a little bit more than I think civilian dynamics hear the wife speak up. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've looked at Chris and I've been like, I love you. I love you so hard. Can you not come home after this field rotation? Like, what other wife would be like, okay, your husband's gone for a week. You know, let's put this into the civilian world of your husband travels for a week and comes home on the weekend, and you know next week he's going to be gone again.
Yeah.
We've had many where I've had to look at him and be like, I love you. Can you stay in the dorm, a friend's house? I mean, I love you, but that puts so much stress on our house for a day and a half to have you walk out the door again.
I agree.
Like, but and how do we, I think that's a different part of our dynamic, is that we've had to be bold and speak our mind like that, where, I mean, in a civilian house, that would tear up marriages. And we do it out of like, dude, this is survival. Like,
yeah, we're doing it to save our marriage.
Yeah, we're bold because we need to, not because we want to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been, yes, absolutely. Like going to blows, like, and then when we say blows, they're not like going to like fist to cuffs or anything. I mean,
no.
But there's definitely like, it is aggressive. It's heated, you know, like, and I think that's like part of our dynamic is with our older kids living this lifestyle. I mean, growing up, they're strong. They are strong kids. They know how to handle themselves. You know, they know how to protect themselves. They know to stick up for themselves and stick up for others. I've noticed that just from the stories I hear about yours and seeing it with mine. You know, they're not timid kids at all because they couldn't be. You know,
right?
They weren't allowed to be timid because they were in survival mode just as much as we were. You know.
Yeah.
So, looking back now, would I have changed it? No, because it's making them who they are today. And, you know, my Olivia, she's amazing. She's going to be amazing. She's she's so responsible. She's, she just is turning into this great young lady, and was it hard for her? Yeah. And we've apologized several times. She's also apologized to us because she knows she was a hard kid as well. And so I see that that's showing a lot of maturity, on her part also, but would I have wished this on like another child? Not necessarily, because it is hard.
I think you're right. Cause like I look at the kids and I look at their personalities and I go, Abby had to come first. Like Abby
Yes.
she had to be first and Jackson had to be my second. Cause you hear this saying of like moms get girls to show, to grow and mature where boys, they teach them how to love. And I go, I needed love more than ever when I had Jackson. And he is thicker than thieves with me. He will love unconditionally to me. And it's because of that bond. Now, if my Eli was my first and dealing with the military, that boy would have cracked a long time ago. He would not have would not have handled it. Do I think Maggie probably could handle it? I mean, maybe. She's a little independent and a spitfire on her own. So apparently that's the girl thing in my house is we're very independent. But I don't think that Eli could have done it. I don't know if Maggie could have done it, being away from their dad that much and having those personalities. Whereas I look at my bigs and I'm like, nah, you guys did good. Like you fended for yourselves. Like I don't ever think that I can look back and go, I regret it. I never regret
No.
having them that time frame. I don't regret raising them in the military at all. I mean, it gave them crazy experiences that are just life-changing experiences. But at the same time, I'm like, bear with me, guys, because we were learning just as much as you were.
Right.
And give us grace because that's what we needed. And I have to remind my kids, even to this day, I'm like, you got to give dad grace. He runs different than we do. Like he just is a little different. We gotta love him for being him. Our family dynamic, we joke all the time, is like we can't throw a box in the house and we can never have balloons at a birthday party. And I mean, for many years, we couldn't even go to a 4th of July festival because my husband and I couldn't handle it. And we'll go into that one later, but that's just part of our dynamic. Like our kids now look around and figure out where is dad so that I know what I'm like, not out of fear, but out of concern for the other, like, hey, I'm throwing this or I'm doing this, or where did that sound come from? Like they're very cognizant of where their dad is in a situation just to help. Like they don't mean it as an insult. They do it as it is truly trying to be helpful to him as much as I would.
Yeah. And, and that, like you said, that's going to go into a whole nother episode and one I'm really excited for. But it shows how through our guys' trauma, we have trauma, and that is part of our dynamic too, that we're trying to navigate. And again, that's a whole nother episode. I'm really excited about that one. So stay tuned. But yeah, absolutely. Like it just, we've learned to adapt. And again, I said it earlier, we have learned to adapt to live with how dad is.
Yes.
And that is different than the civilian world. Like from what I can tell is like they have their life and they have their emotions and they have their moods, and everybody is kind of like, okay, like just working together to either fix it or, like dad is just frustrated, let's just give him a little bit of space or whatever. Whereas, we were always, we're living off of his mood. We are, every time we hear the truck come up, we're going, what's it going to be like this afternoon, or what's it going to be like at home this evening? Because it really depended on him. We were living a reactive state of life
Hmm.
instead of living a life of unity, in
Yes.
if that makes any sense. And
Yeah.
we were just reacting our emotions, our life off of how dad was or is. And then we just adjust from there, you know. So if he came home and he's in a good mood, okay, whew, our shoulders can relax a bit, and we can ask him questions. We can go give him a hug. Hi, Dad, how was your day? You know, can I show you this from school? Blah, 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 blah. Or if he came home quiet, threw his keys down, just the way he took his shoes off, you're like,
Oh,
oh, something's up. And and it was like, kids, why don't you go downstairs, go put on a show, just stay
yep.
out of the way. You know, that's honestly like that was the best thing, just stay out of his way. And so yeah, we're living on like reactive this reactive lifestyle.
And I think that is very, like you said, very different than the civilian world. The civilian world, it is, I think maybe, or at least what I've seen, more along the like we react if we're reacting to anybody's mood, it's the individual, right? Or more so mom than anybody. Like mom dictates the house kind of a thing, or it's each individual as they come into the house or as they have that day or that moment or situation. It is very much so everybody can have the emotions and feelings. Whereas, like you said, we as a military family, we will react more so to our service member or dad. We react more so to dad and his mood than maybe somebody else's who's, like the kids can walk in and have a bad day and I'm like, go chill out, go play, do something. Whereas like, and it won't shift the mood of the house as much. Whereas if Chris walks in and he's not thrilled, even now, if he's not thrilled from the day that you like walks in, and I don't know if you notice your dynamic shifting a little when you're much more intuitive to his mood. Like even the slightest bit of something and you can tell the difference. Because I know like if he doesn't wake up and I don't get an immediate kiss or a smile or something, I can tell something's off. And maybe that's just me being super reactive to him, but it, like you said, even just the way that they take their boots off, even the way that they do something small, it can tell the whole house whether they need to be walking on eggshells or not. And
Yeah,
that's a difference in.
and like, yes, absolutely, like, and I think that came with time. And again, that kind of goes and falls into another episode on our own trauma, and what we've experienced, because um you know we it's we like you're saying earlier, we've had to learn how to communicate so well, and some of that communication is nonverbal communication. And you know because of that, I've kind of developed like this, it is a wall, and I guess this will lead into mine and his dynamic, that I've seen. There is a wall that I've built because of the no kiss in the morning, or the the grunt or whatever when he comes home, like, ugh, like it automatically puts me in a state of crap, what's going on, like. And because even though we communicate well, the communication always hasn't been immediate. So
Right.
then that leads me to start overthinking things, which then
Yes.
causes more problems in a way, because then I go, what did I do? What
Yeah.
happened? And I almost force the issue when he's not ready. and then that turns into a different kind of argument or a different kind of conversation that we've had, or it, rather than what it needed to be, it turned into something else. And so, you know, that's just kind of like my own personal thing that I've been having to deal with, not necessarily deal with. Well, yeah, deal with. I'll say it. I've had to deal with, but I'm learning about, and, now as we're coming out of a very active military career, um, and Eric is getting ready to retire, and he's entering in a different stage. He is now, um, starting to take those steps for his own personal healing, for his own personal, like, mental health, because he needs that. I'm along this journey with him, and I'm starting to, like, heal as well. And so I'm learning, okay, and it's easier now because I've practiced along the years. I've always known before, I just didn't apply it as well as I am now. Like, okay, he needs space. Okay, I didn't do anything wrong. Something else is going on, but let's just give him some time to process. And I get it. I need time to process things too, you know, but it was always just hard to accept that time when his process is affecting our whole lifestyle at home. He's getting
Yes.
angry at the dishes, or he's getting angry at a little kid for just, doing something small, like spilling water. Like, you shouldn't be getting that angry, right? But yet he went from, 0 to a 10 in 3 seconds. And so, it just, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to finish that, but it is what it is. But
It's true. Our dynamic, I think our dynamic is very different than the civilian world in more than just one way. I think we've shown a little bit of, just how it's a seasonal thing. But even then, when we can put it all together and you see dad all the time and we all have it together, there's things that happen behind our closed doors that really only I think military people can understand. Is this dynamic is a little different. The dynamic between individuals is going to be different. Just it's not an individual basis. It's kind of centered around one person. And so our dynamic is different. And it's because we want to support. We've all been doing this as a support. And like yours is 20 years, mine is 7 years. But even then, it's beyond the time that they put down the uniform. It's not just while the uniform's on either. Like, it's on the weekends, it's on the day-to-day basis. It's a different thing that the dynamic carries on. And so I think that out of this episode, I want everybody to kind of get or understand is that military and veteran families tick a little differently. Like, we just do. We tick a little differently. Do we want judgment that maybe mom's running on 2 weeks of being by herself, running on fumes, and I probably need more of a hug than I need you look tired? No kidding, I look tired. You don't even know
that already, right?
The makeup was trying to hide it, but I guess it didn't work. And in more than anything, it's our kids tick different. They love different. And we tick different. We love different. When you join into the dynamic of a military family, even as a civilian, and you become friends with the military personnel, it's going to be it's a different friendship. It is a whole different realm of a friendship. And so I hope that we can shine some light on this dynamic, because I think when we get to the root of it all, and every other topic spins off of this, but if everybody can understand that, one, your family dynamic is not different if you are a service member or a veteran, Your dynamic isn't different. This is just how it is as a military family, and we love it as much as we hate it. Like it's a love hate. Love it. Yeah, we hate it at the same time. And if you're not that service member, but you're outside of that, give us grace. We are trying our best to just still function on a day-to-day basis, and give us grace, but know that we will love on a different level. That when you join our families, you join at a different level. You join into a different idea. I mean, my own kids have aunts and uncles that are not by blood. They have no family resemblance to us, and yet they are called aunt and uncle, and that's how it is. You join in on a family that loves hard, but will protect at all costs. And so I hope that's what we can shine some light on today with this episode, and just in general. We've got experiences in life, and I mean, this can go on, but I'm excited for more topics because we've touched base on a few of them that we are both very, very excited to look forward to. So make sure that you are following wherever you're on, whether it's the podcast or it's on YouTube. Make sure that you're subscribing and following along with us so that you can hear when we put up new episodes, when there's clues, tips, and tricks, and hints, and all the things. Make sure to find us out on social so that we can share along with you. And we want to hear from you guys. We truly do want to hear from you guys. So, leave it in the comments, find us on social, share us out with others that are either related to the military or our military, that they can continue to show some love, and we can, just pour in. But thank you for being here, Ash, and being a part of this. And I'm excited for the next few episodes.
Excited. And I'm happy to be here with you. Like, this is fun. This is good. And I think this is going to be healing. And I think it's going to be just, refreshing for, hopefully, like you're saying, other service members, maybe, who knows, but, and then hopefully for other civilians, just like they've come across a military family at one point or another, and so I'm just excited. I'm excited what this can bring.
Yes, me too. So thank you guys, and we will chat next week.